Hello everybody, my name is Satan herself. Welcome to this little video that I'm making here for Plants vs. Zombies Plants. We're going to do a tier list of all of them. I'm a speedrunner of this game. You might have seen me on Games Done Quick or Fast 52, and I wanted to tell everybody about what I think the plants kind of are in relation to each other, how they stack up, and we're going to be doing this like very in depth. So we're going to be talking about their designs, their utility, pretty much everything about every plant is going to be covered. So this is pretty comprehensive. I might go ahead and split this up by world. We might put them all in the same video. We'll see how it goes. If I split up by world, you'll notice the video will be shorter and I'll put out more parts later. If not, we're just going to have a big party ranking all of these. And you'll see why I might break this up later. It's because we are, again, going to do quite the comprehensive ranking of all of these plants. But I'm sure if you are watching this video, you have played or at least have seen Plants vs. Zombies. It is a tower defense game where you use these cute, adorable little plant guys to defeat some nasty, ugly zombies. And today we're going to be talking about literally every single one of them. You can see as I scroll down here, we have a lot of plants to cover. We've got more than, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, more than 50 plants. So yeah, we're going to get kind of just started right into it because it's a long one. So first, the most iconic plant possibly in the game, pea shooter. So pea shooter, we're going to rank on 3 criteria, and we're going to do this for every single other plant in this list as well. We're going to be ranking them on utility. So that's just how good they are overall in the game. We're going to be considering both speedrunning and casual play for utility. So we're going to be kind of lumping both of them into that one. And then we're going to be doing design. How strong do I think this design is? How fun is it to look at? How much has it held up over the years? How iconic is it? All of that will go in there. And then we've got the final metric, which is the fun factor. The fun factor is kind of the ace in the hole, the cards up your sleeve kind of thing, where if a plant has something extra to it, just a little something that it makes me feel when I use, I'm going to include that in the fun factor, and that will sort of shape the ranking based on that individual plant's character or whatever else it brings to the game. We're going to rank them all 1 by 10. And then we're going to average those out, add them together, and average them out to basically make them in the tier list. Now, you might notice that there might be some times where I technically have a plant at a certain numerical value, but then I'll bump it lower or up a tier, and I'll kind of explain why I do that. But for the most part, we're going to just go by the numbers that we're going to get at the end here. But all right, pea shooter. This is the first plant you see in the game. You slap it down on 1-1, and it kills the zombies for you. 1 doesn't even let you progress until you put 2 down, so the game really tells you to use it. And so you learn pretty quickly that the pea shooter is a pretty effective way of killing zombies. It's certainly not the most powerful plant in the game, but it only takes down a normal zombie in about 9 hits, so that's about 3 tiles away, which is honestly not that bad. It's pretty good, and it's going to be the plant that we measure every single shooter up against for the rest of the game, so I think that gives it quite a bit of merit. In terms of utility, it is pretty good in speedrunning in the early game. We sporadically use it in the later game, but mostly it falls off after day. So I'll give pea shooter maybe an 8 out of 10 for utility. And then design, I think the pea shooter is so incredibly strong with its design. It is a perfect base as to which all of the other pea shooters can be built upon. It is just, it's got all the little features. It's got the little leaf behind it. It's got its cute little vacant eyes. The shape is so iconic as well. So iconic that I even use the pea shooter to make up my own design, Spicy Pea. She's kind of on my little headband right here. You can see her on my profile picture. It's just the perfect base design to work off of. Everybody's seen the pea shooter. Everybody knows the pea shooter. Everybody loves the pea shooter. It's not maybe got the most individual character, and we'll talk about a variant that I think is maybe the best design in the game later. But for now, I'm going to give the pea shooter a 9 out of 10. I think it pretty much succeeds at exactly what it wants to do, and succeeds on that very well. And then fun factor. I think pea shooter has very little in the way of fun factor just because of how simple it is, but the plunk that you get when you hit a zombie with the pea is very satisfying. I will give it that. It's got really good sound design. The little splat of the pea is also just an adorable animation. It's pretty good. So I'll give the pea shooter about a 6 out of 10 on the fun factor. Higher than average, but it's not bringing a whole ton to the table. That's exciting on its own. So that's going to average out to be about a 7, and I think that's a very comfy A tier. I like the pea shooter in there. I think that's exactly where it should go. And then next, the most iconic plant in the game, I do not have any reservations saying that, is the sunflower. The sunflower is obviously extremely important. You use it in almost every single world past here in the speedrun, and it's just absolutely critical. You kind of buy plants with sun, and sunflower is your moneymaker. It will just revolutionize your gameplay off the bat. And most players will only plant like 3 of them, casually, but you really should plant a million of them. As I learned in Fast 52, there's a thing called triple sun strategy, greed, many layers of greed, and yeah, you're right to have many layers of greed and plant lots and lots of sunflowers. They are very, very good. Utility 10 out of 10, just because there's no possible way to rank it any different spot. They're just the most useful. Also, included in utility, sunflowers are only 50, and they're just a plant you can put on the board, which means that you can use them to block plants and stall zombies, or to block zombies and stall zombies all throughout pretty much in any scenario that you can think of. So sunflowers are good not even just for their ability to make sun, but also for their ability to just stand in as bodies on the field. Sorry, sunflower. Design. Sorry, I can't possibly give it any lower than 10 out of 10. Look at its smile. look at her little smile. She's so cute. She's just like a perfect design. There's a reason that sunflower is everywhere, absolutely dominating the internet forever since the game came out. Iconic. Just iconic. She's iconic. There's a reason that she sang the Zombies on Your Lawn song. Just a perfect choice for everything. Perfect design. No notes. 10 out of 10. And then fun factor. I think this is where there's some imperfection with the sunflower, because while it is fun to see the sunflower do a little glow and pop out the sun, and while the sunflower's dance, like back and forth dance, is extraordinarily iconic, she doesn't quite have that same feedback that other plants are going to have that make them especially fun. But for a sunflower, for a literal like resource dealing plant, she does very, very well at what she does, and she does bring a lot of fun extras to the table. The little dance and the little glow and the little sound effect that happens when you pick up sun is honestly already elevating it so high. So I'll give it an 8 out of 10 on the fun factor. That gives her a comfy almost 10, and I am not surprised to be putting the sunflower in the S tier. It's just, she's the goat. Enough said. Moving on, Cherry Bomb. So the game is kind of cleverly layering upon itself with what plants it's introducing here, because it's introducing sort of the main archetypes that we're going to be using moving throughout the game and the run. Cherry Bomb is what we will call an instant plant, meaning that when you use it, the zombie just immediately goes away. All of its health, all of its everything, just poof, gone. And the Cherry Bomb is a very dramatic instance of an insta, actually. It has a 3x3 radius, which is quite high, and it completely obliterates every zombie in their radius. And it happens instantly when you put it down, meaning that it's really quite a good plant for emergency situations, and it's also really good for controlling big hordes of zombies. Especially in the speedrunning scene, especially in the day world, we're able to actually clump up zombies together using something called mower manipulation, where we let mowers go, and that means that zombies aren't going to spawn in those lanes for 2 waves, because the game is like, you're bad at that lane, at that lane. I get it. Okay, take a couple waves to rebuild your defenses there. So we use that to our advantage, and we're able to clump zombies up into spots and then blow them all up with Cherry Bomb. Also relevant for speedrunning, the faster you kill zombies, the faster new ones appear, which is why plants that do instant damage are extra good in speedrunning, as opposed to maybe the consistent damage plants, which are great for level progression, but are maybe not as instantly helpful. So the Cherry Bomb has a lot of utility, I would say. The only things that really hold it back is that it's really slow to recharge, and it costs 150 sun, which is a lot. So we'll give its utility, I don't know, like an 8 out of 10. It really needs to be paired with more accessible instants to be the best version of itself, but it's still a really solid plant. And then for design, I think the Cherry Bomb is pretty cool. I really like its sort of deep red color. It's very iconic. The expressions are really funny and cute. I like that it has sort of these irregularly shaped eyes. It's all kind of wonky, and it gives the impression that it's about to blow at any moment, which is, you know, exactly what it should do. It's very cute. I think the only reason that it maybe doesn't fall in that same kind of basically perfect category as the pea shooter and the sunflower do for me is just that it's a little bit harder to make out the details. It's a little bit less of a striking visual design in terms of the sort of personality that it's giving off. So we'll give it another 8. Good solid 8. And then where Cherry Bomb I think really shines is actually the fun factor. I'm sure every person remembers the first time they put down a Cherry Bomb and it absolutely just exploded the zombie, and you see it turn to ashes and fall to the ground. I've been seeing a gif of that going around lately. It's a really funny one. Yeah, it's just so good, so visceral, perfect, perfect stuff pretty much from the Cherry Bomb. And so I'll give it a 9 out of 10 for that. It's pretty much exactly what you'd want that to be. And with that that'll be an average of about an 8, and I think a high A tier is pretty appropriate for that Cherry Bomb. If you were asking me about PvZ Fusion, my answer might be bumped up a little bit, but we don't have to talk about PvZ Fusion today. Maybe we'll do a tier list of that game later. Who knows? But anyhow, all right, the 4th plant. This is our last kind of archetypal plant, I would say, which is our first sort of blocker or tank or stall plant. We're going to see a couple more of those later on as well. The walnut is certainly the most cheap and accessible version of that, only 50 sun. It gets eaten after a little while, but it takes a good bit. It's mostly useful for casual stalling of zombies, making sure they don't overrun you, or in the speedrun, you use it to block zombies right before the mower, and then you can dig up the walnut whenever you please, and then the zombie will go to the mower and activate it, which is a pretty useful ability to be able to have for only 50 sun, especially. Pretty nice. So the walnut is definitely a pretty utility-based plant, but it certainly does fall off in use as the game goes on, especially casually. You're going to want stuff like tall nuts and pumpkins later because they just have more fortitude and more flexibility in terms of what you're able to do with them. And then from a speedrunning perspective, you use them in day pretty well, and then sporadically throughout the rest of the game, and then not really a ton in the later parts of the run. So I would give it maybe a 7 out of 10 for utility. I think that's pretty good. Design. Now, design I think is where Walnut really shines. It is a nice little round boy. In fact, I am so enamored with this design. I have made little clay versions of him that you can shake around, and it has balls in it to make it make a sound. It's pretty good. I think the walnut is such a strong design. Just a little chunk of a character. There's a reason that U2's made a plush of it, because you kind of just want to squeeze it. Its expression is so cute. I love its tiny mouth. And until I started making these, I didn't realize how tiny their mouths are, but they really are truly very small. And I think that is very lovely. And they have those little sort of shapes at the end of them. They're very cute. I definitely love a little walnut design. I'll give that one a 9 out of 10, because I don't think it's quite as perfect and iconic as the sunflower, but it's getting up there. It's a really good design. And then finally, fun factor. I don't think Walnut has a ton going for it here. The only thing for fun factor that I will absolutely give it in this particular section is walnut bowling. They did find a way to use the walnut in a really creative way to sort of highlight its design strengths and the fun that you could have with it, which is bowling it into zombie opponents. And I think even though technically we're kind of just ranking the plants as they are here and not like their variants or their special use cases, I'll make an exception for the walnut because it literally is the 5th level of the game. You're pretty much always going to play it, and it also has 2 entire mini-games. So it's a pretty iconic use of that plant. A lot of people will remember walnut bowling being kind of the way that they remember walnut. So because of that, I think the fun factor has to go up to like like an 8-ish. And then with that, we have an average of around almost 8. And I think we'll put the walnut in A tier right below pea shooter. I think that's a really good place for it. It works well for me. All right. Whew. So much plant talk. Let's get into the potato mine. So the potato mine is a really cute little guy, and it's our first sort of variation on these sort of core 4 that we've got up here. It is taking the instant formula and trying something very different with it than the cherry bomb. The cherry bomb you put down, it immediately blows up those zombies. You don't have to worry about it anymore. It's done. But the mine is very different. You put it down, and after a little while, it comes up from the ground, and then it's activated and ready to use. It takes forethought and pre-planning to be able to use mines, whereas the cherry bomb doesn't really have to do that. Now, of course, why would it do that? It's because mines have a quicker cooldown and are only costing 25 sun. So that means that they are super cheap alternative. And in fact, when you combine the mine and the cherry bomb, that makes for a really nice combo of instants. They're gonna help you sort of be able to blow up zombies consistently all throughout the way. The mine is tough to use in a speedrunning sense, but it is very gratifying when you are able to pull something off. But it is a little bit harder to use than the cherry bomb. The cherry bomb is very straightforward. And then in a casual sense, I'm not quite sure how many people really like mine in a casual sense. In fact, it's kind of a bold play to make this your 5th plant in the game, I think, because it is kind of a complicated thing. And for a game so simple as Plants vs. Zombies, I'm not quite sure that hits super well with casuals. I feel like I've seen casuals place mines back in column 4 and just wait for zombies to get to them, and that breaks my brain. But, you know, if casuals like to do that, then good for y'all. I don't know. Put it in the comments how you like to use mine, or how you liked to use mine when you played this game the first time, because I really don't know. But either way, I think mine will get a solid 7 out of 10 for utility. It can be really good, but it requires a lot of planning. Or some very safe strategies to use it well, and I'm not sure that either of those are the best. And then design. It's a cute little mine. I love the little buck teeth. I love the little glimmer on the eyes. I love the potato mine. I think the potato mine is so dang cute. It's almost a perfect design. The only thing that's wrong with the potato mine is that it's stuck in the ground, so it's really hard to make like merch of it. It's really hard to make like you would this walnut, a sort of standalone, like figure type thing of it. It doesn't really work as well like that. But besides that, it's like, it's just so iconic. It's a little cute little guy. And I love when its little antenna blinks red. It's so cute. Also spadow when a zombie gets exploded. That's more of the fun factor, but like, iconic. For design for mine score, it's really, really good. The only thing that's keeping it from being perfect is its lack of being a standalone plant, so we'll do a 9 out of 10. And then, finally, fun factor. I think the mine is really interesting because if you get a really great mine kill, like if you get a cone head that walks straight into the mine, then you feel really good. That's a super gratifying kill. You're like, oh my gosh, I planned all of this out perfectly. I figured out where all the zombies were going to be. I feel so good. And also, of course, whenever a mine goes off, you get that big spadow in the big text right there, which is super fun. But there is, of course, that element of what if the mine gets eaten before it can get anybody, or what if it only blows up like a normal zombie. And that does happen. If you want a little trick, chat, by the way, as an aside, you can watch the cooldown for the mine, and when it gets to half, then that mine will arm. So you do kind of know when the mine will arm and be able to sort of know that. So it's not suspense like that necessarily, although sometimes it can kind of be on the edge and be hard to tell. But for the most part, I think the mine has its ups and downs and its fun factor. Overall, I'll average it about a 7, we'll say. And then that all averages out to almost an 8, which I think will bring it in A tier, and I'm just going to slot it right between there, the pea shooter and the walnut. I think it has more enduring use in the speedrun than the walnut does. We do take mine for quite a while in the game, actually. We use it in almost every single world, or every single world, depending on what strategy you're using. So that's a pretty big compliment to the mine. I think it is a good, solid plant. It just has a few minor things holding it back. Haha. Pun not intended. Nobody's gonna watch this. Anyway, moving on. We got snow pea. So snow pea, I think, is one of the more controversial plants from the day section, because I have seen many different opinions about the snow pea and how useful it is. For speedrunners, we are maybe not the biggest fans. And the reason for that is because the regular pea shooter, which does the exact same amount of damage as the snow pea, and remember, damage is what makes our waves go faster, which means we get more zombies on the screen to kill them more faster, is the same. Their damage is the exact same. The only thing that snow pea has going for it is its slowdown. And like, the slowdown is useful. It helps. It's not a bad thing. It's just, is that worth 75 sun? Usually not. You can usually be using your 75 sun wisely elsewhere. instead of sending it on a Snow Pea. In fact, we only take Snow Pea once throughout the whole game voluntarily, and that's, well, actually, we're forced into taking it. So it's not even voluntarily. We only use it in 1.7 and 1.10. And it's useful in both stages, but it is certainly not the most important plant, even out of those stages. But that does not mean that it's bad in all contexts. And in fact, I know a lot of casual fans of the game really love Snow Pea. And I can see why. The slowdown makes hordes of zombies a lot more manageable. It does make certain high health zombies a lot more manageable too. You can strategically use it pretty well. It's a good plant, I think, in terms of its casual utility. I can see why people like it. So, with all that said, tough call. I think I'll give the Snow Pea like a 7 out of 10. I would have given it maybe a 5 for speedrunning, but casually I'd give it like an 8, so I'll give it a charitable 7 out of 10. I think that's a fair place for Split Pea on utility. And then, after that, the design. Now, this is where I think Snow Pea is going to be really strong, because it's a really good early showcase of what you can do with the pea shooter design. You can sort of mix match it. You can kind of, remix it to make it this cool new version of itself. It's got this very iconic shade of ice blue. That blue is very much forever etched in my brain as the slowdown color in PvZ, and it's very much associated with the Snow Pea in particular as well. I really like the little icicles that come out the back of its head. There's no wonder I used that for Spicy Pea. It's a good little design. I think it does what it does very well. It's iconic. There's a reason that a lot of people really love this plant in terms of its character and want it to come back in future iterations of the game. And so I'll give it, it's not perfect. I think, again, the pea shooter design has one much better variant, at least. But yeah, we'll give it an 8 out of 10, and that is, I think, a compliment. And then, finally, the fun factor. I think the fun factor is pretty decent with the pea shooter. That's a pretty decent fun factor. Or with the Snow Pea. That's pretty decent. It slows down those zombies. It has a little burr sound effect when it gets to them. I think those are fun. Those are fun little additions. It does make you feel like you're more in control as the player, and I think that is definitely a strength of the Snow Pea. I have fun when I slow down zombies, even if I know that I paid a little bit too much for it. And all of that will average us a little bit over 7. But I'm going to use my speedrunner bias and put it down here to B. This is a very strong B. Don't get me wrong. This is a strong B, and I'm prepared for y'all to come at me in the comments. Please do. Boost the engagement. But yeah, that's where it's going, and it's my tier list, and you can't do anything about it. Sorry. I like the Snow Pea, though. Once again, this is a strong B. It's gonna be a B. Alright. Now, we're coming up to a plant that I have much, much stronger feelings for in the positive direction. Chomper is probably my favorite plant in the game. I think it's one of the best plants in the game. And again, casuals are going to be up in my DMs like, what are you talking about? The Chomper is terrible. It eats one zombie and then the zombies behind it eat it. And then it's bad. No. Respectfully, I disagree. And the reasons for why I disagree is that it's a god tier speedrunning plant. One of the top 5 plants for speedrunning in the entire game, and there's some real heavy hitters we're going to be talking about later. Chomper is just so good. It's so good. It's kind of hard to describe. Yes, it does cost the same amount as a cherry bomb. Yes, I'll concede it is a little pricey. But what Chomper does have, the cherry bomb does not, is a very, very fast cooldown. It is able to be spammed on the board. And what that does is it activates 50% rules super quickly, lightning fast. And by activating 50% rules, I mean it gets that 50% of damage from one wave of zombies, and then that will trigger the next wave to spawn. So if you're just finding the cone head or the bucket head that spawns on that wave, you're slamming down a Chomper in front of that guy, it slurps it up in its giant mouth, then that means you're basically just moving on to the next wave, more or less, right away. Without having to worry about it. And you just get to do that pretty much every single wave because the Chomper is super fast cooldown. So as long as you have enough sunflowers, shout out to Sunflower, on the board, then you can just keep doing that. And it's really, really good. Chomper takes about 40 seconds to chew before it will eat another zombie, which is a lot. I will give it that. You were not really going to expect Chomper to eat and then chomp again all that much, but that's okay. It's done its job on the first chomp. You can sometimes place it in column 8 and get a second one. Yeah. I think another cool thing about Chomper that a lot of people would not know is that the game does encourage the Chomper walnut strategy subtly by making it so that Chompers eat zombies faster when there's a plant in front of them, and then when the zombie bites that plant in front of them, they'll eat them. So that's a pretty cool little feature of the Chomper. Sometimes its range is so far that it will get zombies that you would not think that it could get at all. And 5-5, there's always instances of that. It's a really fun and quirky plant. It's got a lot of details to it. It's a good one. I get why casuals aren't as enamored with it. For a lot of casual strategies, it's not really part of your repertoire. But it is absolutely vital to the speedrun. So vital, in fact, I'm going to override and give it at least a 9 out of 10. And this is a compromise. I promise. Design, I will continue to go to bat for the Chomper. I mean, look at that guy. He's got an absolutely amazing row of teeth. He's like a shark in there. I bet those teeth regrow if they come out, if it's even possible for them to come out. He's got a mohawk. He's purple, a big giant jaw. It's like a jawbreaker came to life and sprouted some leaves and stuff and had a thirst for zombie flesh. So I love me some Chomper. Chomper is a great design. Super fun to look at. There's a reason that it's become one of the most iconic plants in the game. I put it on my t-shirt design that I have in my shop, and I had a single zombie arm hanging out of it because I think that that is emblematic of the type of vibe that Chomper is going for. Just brutalizing everything it goes for. And design, therefore, will give it a 10 out of 10. I'm sorry, I'm biased. Oh well. And then finally, the fun factor. Speaking of brutalizing everything, not only is it fun to just scoop up zombies and chomp them with that iconic sound effect I can still hear in my head right now, but chompers can chomp almost any zombie in the game. They can't chomp gigagargs or gargs, as you might expect. Other than that, it's kind of got everything, just about. If the first time you see a Chomper chomp a Zomboni or a catapult, this is when you fall in love with the game, I think. It's just so funny to watch this many times larger object just be swallowed up by this thing. Put in the comments what you think Chomper does to be able to do that. What kind of pocket dimension it sends these vehicles to. I do not know, but I would love to hear the theories. But anyway, that's obviously mega fun. Duh. So, all that said, I'm giving Chomper a 9 out of 10 fun factor, which means it almost has a perfect 10, and it goes in S tier. I can't in good conscience put it above the sunflower because, well, it's the sunflower. But other than that, Chomper gets pretty much everything it deserves and more. It absolutely is an S tier plant. I am sorry, casuals. Please, please again comment. It boosts the engagement. And then finally, to round out our day section of the video here, we have got Repeater. Repeater is the plant I was alluding to when I was talking about the super strong variant of the pea shooter that I think is just kind of perfect in almost every way. It is just awesome. But let's start with utility. First off, it shoots 2 bullets for the price of 2 pea shooters. So you're like, how is this any better than a single pea shooter? Well, there's 2 reasons for that. The first is that it only takes up 1 tile, and this actually ends up being really, really important in later levels in the game, where your tile economy is much more stringent than it is in the early game. Especially pool, we use Repeater as a speedrun tactic a lot, and I'm sure that casuals use Repeater all over the game as well, because it is just really space efficient, which, again, ends up being really important later down the line. And then second of all, it actually does shoot, I think, at a little bit of a faster rate than 2 pea shooters together. I might be spreading misinformation on that. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but it has always felt faster than pea shooters together. And I'm a speedrunner, so hopefully my intuition is pretty decent. That's good utility. The only thing that's really a downside about the Repeater is that it costs double, so you have to have a higher investment cost. But after you kind of get over that, it's not that huge a deal. I would give it a solid... I'll give it a 9 out of 10 for utility. It's not a perfect 10 out of 10 because, once again, it costs quite a bit to get going, but after that, you're very much chilling. Especially because it can take down a single Conehead all by itself. Really nice. Design! Now this is where I think the repeater really shines. The repeater looks at the pea shooter and says, bet. It takes all of the pea shooter's little characteristics and details and just amps them up. And I think it's just perfect masterclass of showing how you can make an upgraded design without absolutely going ballistic on it, without hammering it over the head of your player base that this is the stronger version of the thing. It's just so elegant. You just make the eyebrows angrier, you kind of fluff up the back, and boom, you got a repeater, baby. I think it's brilliant. Even if, like, other people might say it's not very dramatic, it's, you know, kind of understated, it might be hard to tell apart from the pea shooter, I think that it is iconic, and I love it. I think it is such a good example of what it does just perfectly. We'll give a repeater a 10 out of 10, because again, I'm biased, but I really do think it's just perfect for what it is. It's a unique design. I'll say that for what it's accomplishing. And then, finally, fun factor. The repeater is very similar to the pea shooter in terms of fun factor. Satisfying plunks, but not much else. The thing that is a little bit more fun about repeater is that it does do more damage more quickly. So you plop that bad boy down and a normal zombie is dead very quickly, or just one can solo a Conehead, so that's pretty good fun factor. I'll give it a slight bump up from a pea shooter, so that's a 7 out of 10 versus the pea shooter 6. So all of that averages out to about a 9. It doesn't maybe get quite up to a 9, but I don't really mind. I think it still deserves the bottom of S tier. I think the repeater is really good. And there you have it for the day plants. So just as a little day recap, we have all of our day plants at B tier or higher, and the only one that's down here in B tier is the snow pea. So that means that day has had a really nice showing, and I'm not surprised about this. All of the plants there are really well balanced, both just for the entire game and also in relation to each other. So they're all really useful. They occupy a unique space in the niche, and also, of course, they're all mega iconic. These are some of the plants that everybody would recognize if they were shown it. Some of the plants that you would think of when you think of the name Plants vs. Zombies. So, you know, of course these were going to have some good showings. And now, we're going to go ahead and move on with the tier list, with the night section. So, nighttime. The lights dim. And we find ourselves with mushroom plants instead of regular plants. And what's the difference? Well, the mushrooms only wake up at night. So that does mean, unfortunately, all of them are going to have a little bit more limited utility than the other plants that stay awake during the day, because they just, you know, aren't quite as applicable for all of the rest of the game. Now, of course, we are going to gain the coffee bean later, which will help rectify this. But before that time comes, unfortunately, the mushrooms all have to have a slight reduced utility when considering them. But some of them might rise to the occasion so hard, it might not matter. The other thing about mushrooms is that, of course, they are in the nighttime, so that means no more falling sun. So that means the balance on these guys is super different than it would be for the day plants. So we're going to be sort of considering them in a bit of a different light, given that. So, now I was alluding to a mushroom that might eclipse the, and pun potentially intended, the day plants in terms of its utility, so much so that we don't have to worry about it. And here we are already at the beginning of night. They hand you the most OP plant in the game starting at night. This is the Puffshroom. Puffshroom is literally free. It costs you absolutely nothing. No chunk of change. You do not have to empty out your wallet. You get that Puffshroom. And not only is the Puffshroom 3, but its cooldown is super fast, so it's super spammable, and it does the same damage as a pea shooter. You might think it does less. Nope, the exact same. Absolutely nothing was taken off this guy, except for that it only fires from 3 tiles back from a zombie, but for speedrunners, that's fine. We'll live. We'll be cool. The spammability of it means that you're going to survive these hordes of zombies while also dealing damage to them really quickly with this super, super OP plant. I think casuals agree that it's OP. I have literally never seen anybody say that this is an underrated plant. It's just, yeah, 10 out of 10 utility. Also, it has additional special utility in the daytime because even though it is not awake without the coffee bean, it is a free plant that you can put on the board, which means that it's a free blocker. You can use it just for literally free. Good stuff. So, design-wise, you might think that the Puff Shroom does less damage than the Pea Shooter, and I think that's a slight failure of design. It's a small little guy. It's adorable. Don't get me wrong. I think it is just a super cute, super iconic design, but the problem with it is that it might communicate that it's less strong than other plants by virtue of its being small, but it isn't. It's actually perfectly as capable. The only thing that it has is decreased range, which I don't think is super implied by the design. But I think that's pretty much its only flaw. Otherwise, this is an adorable, adorable little thing. It's just a little button. I would squeeze it like this if I had one in my hand. I would eat it as a gummy if they made gummies of these. Actually, that might be a little morbid. Maybe I wouldn't. I don't know. Put in the comments whether you do that. But either way, I think it's a really solid design. It only has one little thing holding it back, so I'll give it an 8 out of 10 on that. And then finally, fun factor. Puff Shrooms are super fun because they're super spammable. You just put them down on the board right away, and they do a lot of damage. They have a really cute little shooting animation. I think it's really adorable to watch the entire kind of weight of the Puff Shroom be pumped into the little projectile shoots. It's really cute. It's definitely a very fun little plant. We'll give it a 9 out of 10 for that. And all of that's going to average to about a 9 out of 10, but I'm even going to bump it up a little higher. Just below the Sunflower. You could interchange these two because the Puff Shroom is just so incredibly good. It's just hard to talk about it without saying that it's kind of the best. And then, its companion, a little bit, is the Sun Shroom. The Sun Shroom is essentially the nighttime's answer to the Sunflower, saying that we see that the economy is different. It's a little bit harder to get the sun going with the Sunflower because you can only put one down at the beginning of the level and then you have to wait for 50 sun to be generated again. So the Sun Shroom only costs 25. Which is a pretty good investment cost, but the problem with it is then it will only give you back 15 sun every time, and we'll talk about this more in the fun section, but that might be the grossest number they could have possibly picked. It works for the balance, but it's not fun to see. But balancing-wise, it works great. Sun Shroom is a better sun producer in the nighttime than the Sunflower is. That's fairly intuitive if you've ever played the nighttime and you've used both of these plants. That doesn't mean they're incongruous. In fact, you can use both of them together, which we do in the speedrun into certain levels. But either way, it's a pretty good plant. It's well designed. You definitely need to use it. The only thing that's really kind of unfortunate about it is that it just feels like a necessity. It doesn't really feel like a whole lot of its own plant with a lot of its own character. But utility-wise, we'll give it a 9 out of 10, just because it's really good. The only bump down I'd give it is just because it doesn't feel like its own standalone product as much as the Sunflower does. And then design-wise, it's got a good design. I like the shades of sort of brownish orange and yellows that are used on it. It's pretty iconic and stands out from the rest of the nighttime plants really well, while also blending in really well with them. It's kind of giving the warm tone to this group of cool tone plants that it really needs. So I think design-wise, that's really strong. I also really like that it starts out small and gets big. I think that's adorable. That's a really cute little gimmick, and I think everybody's very happy when their Sunflower or their Sun Shrooms grow up big and strong. So, well, design-wise, I'll give it a 9 out of 10 as well. I think that's a really strong design. The more I talk about it, the more I like it. And then finally, the fun factor. Like the Sunflower, I don't think that it has a ton of fun factor because it's, just on its own because it's just a utility plan and just produces stuff for you. But that doesn't mean that there aren't things to talk about. First of all, when it increments of 15. 15, I don't think any other thing in the history of the world has given you currency in increments of 15. It's just, it feels wrong. And I think everybody else agrees because when you see like 40 or 5 on your sun count, you just recoil in disgust. It just doesn't look right. You have to avoid it in your brain. You just have to stop thinking about it as you speedrun. It will not be it will not be a fun thing to think about if you get harped on it. So if you harp on it, so like, you deal. But either way, that's the point against it. The point for it is the growing up big animation, the sort of little sound effect that happens when that happens, and then you get to see your big full-fledged sun shroom out there, and it's, you know, in its glory, and you feel like, oh, I raised you from a little tiny thing that made some gross sun, and now it makes good sun. Now it makes good real sun. I think that's pretty cool. That's a good fun factor. So I'll average those out and give it a 7. Given all that, it'll get about an 8. A little bit more. I'm comfortable putting it at the bottom of S tier, just because it's such an important plant, and it works super well throughout the course of the night stages. Unfortunately, it's not super utilizable outside of the night stages, but because it's so important to making the night stages really work, it definitely gets its flowers for that. Well, it gets its sun shrooms, mushrooms, for that, its spores. Mycelium? I don't know. Don't ask me. I'm not a plant biologist. I'm a neuroscientist, so this is not my area of expertise. All right, moving on from that. We've got our fume shroom. So fume shroom is unfortunate because I think it's the first plant in the game to really be put in your face and say, hey, this plant is here because there's a zombie and you need to kill it, and this is the way that you do that. And I think PvZ is at its strongest when its plants feel like they have infinite potential. When they just feel like they're towers in your system. They're seed packets you can just throw down wherever to do whatever you want. And like, of course, not every single plant is going to be like that, but I like it when they feel like that. And the fume shroom kind of feels like an unfortunate compromise in that way. And it feels like an unfortunate compromise because it actually does have some really good utility as well. Being able to pierce through a whole group of zombies on a row is really solid utility. It works really well. So it's not like a bad plant, it's just unfortunate the way that they presented it and the way that it's designed in that way, I think. But again, this doesn't mean that it's a bad mushroom at all. I think both speedrunners and casuals can agree that it is definitely useful. It has its moments, and of course, it is the bottom tier tower of the absolutely monstrous glue shroom that we'll talk about later, so it certainly gets merit for that. That's for sure. Yeah, I think pretty good. Unfortunately, in speedrunning, it's not quite as good as some of the other mushrooms, and we actually try to route it out of levels where we can. We have a couple levels where we've already completely successfully done that, and then a couple of other levels where there's high-level strats that don't use fume shroom, but it's still a pretty good little friend. It works. It's good. We will use it. So I think the fume shroom, give it an 8 because that pierce is pretty strong and useful. Especially even when you're speedrunning, because you want to get to those zombies in the back that just spawned to be able to get to that next rule faster. Design. Fume shroom's kind of interesting because it really takes up a lot of space on the board. And like the only other one that's ever done that up to this point has been the chopper. And the chopper is just like, it has such a commanding presence. It kind of made sense to do that for sure. And the fume, I think, does. It just kind of makes it stick out, if that makes sense. You kind of look on the top of the dome and you see the little splotches that look like continents, and you're kind of staring at that the whole time. Or is that just me? I don't know. But the fume definitely kind of sticks out. I don't think that's necessarily bad, but I also don't think it's necessarily good. I don't know quite what to make of it. It definitely communicates what it does pretty well with its design. Big and bulbous means lots of firepower. And it being concentrated down into this tiny little spout on the top, you can understand kind of what this mushroom is going for before it even quite hits the scene. So I think it's pretty effective. It's just maybe not my favorite design, maybe not the best of all time. We'll give it a 7. It's good though. It's good though. Don't get me wrong. And then finally, for the fun factor. It is fun, certainly, to pierce through big groups of zombies. I think that is enjoyable. Seeing a lot of zombies die at once because you're just shooting them with fumes is really fun. And of course, it is really good for holding back hordes of zombies, especially in 210. You're like, oh, I really want that guy. Because it'll be really nice to shoot all of these zombies with him. But once again, kind of held back by the fact that the fume shrooms kind of a screen door counter. I think that kind of brings it down a little bit for me. So I think all of that together will bring it to about a 6. And that means that Fume Shroom is going to be around a 7-ish in terms of average, a little bit less than 7, but I don't think I have the heart to bring it in B tier. Maybe I do. Yeah. We try to route it out of levels as much as we can. It's a top B tier. It's a really good B tier. It's a solid B tier, but it's not quite cracking that A tier. All right, moving on. Gravebuster. So the Gravebuster, I know I just said that I don't love it when the game is like, here's the plant for this specific thing, and you got to use it for that. But honestly, I think the Gravebuster is like my main exception to that, because it's so good at what it does, and what it does is so necessary and satisfying. And the game doesn't pretend like it can do other things. It's not in this little half and half range. It knows exactly what the Gravebuster is for and what it's going to do with it. I think it kind of gets away with it. And speaking of being good at what it does, the utility is very high with this guy. I would imagine for both casuals and for speedrunners alike, the Graves are really pesky and annoying. They stand in your way. They don't let you do what you want to do. Getting those Gravebusters down and getting them off the screen is just really good. It makes a big impact on your game, especially when Puffshrooms have to be close to the front to do most of the damage, and those Graves are also going to be mostly close to the front. But there is a additional benefit that, of course, helps both speedrunners and casuals alike, but maybe speedrunners think about a little more. After a Grave is dug up, you always get a money drop. And money is actually really helpful in any percent. We do need to buy things like seed slots and upgrade plants and things of that nature. So having Graves be dug up, that's kind of a good thing. It gives you more money, makes you more rich. So for being also our cash cow, as well as a very good utility plant in its own right, I will give it an 8 out of 10. Only 8 out of 10 because it is very much pigeonholed by not only being not useful in the day stages, but only being useful in the night stages. Meaning you're almost never going to use it again after the nighttime. You use it in night survivals, and that is it. Yeah, a little limited. Design-wise, I love this guy. I think he's really, really fun. I don't know what it is about the Gravebuster, but I kind of love it. I love that it's got like little teeth that kind of go like this, kind of on the on the grave. I don't know. It reminds me of maybe like a squid. I'm not sure. But for some reason, I love it. I think it's funny that it has little like vines for hair. I don't really know why they designed it like that, but it kind of comes together. It is its own little creature, thing. It very much stands alone as one of those PvZ plants that really seems like its own thing. It doesn't really seem like it would have come from anywhere. It doesn't have an obvious inspiration. It's not building on anything. It's just what it is. It's just a silly little guy. Also, what did they do to this plant's design in PvZ 2? Why does it look like that? I don't get it. I don't like it. I do not want it. Get it out of my face. If you have seen that, you know how terrible it is. I'll flash it on screen. You can avert your eyes now. I'm giving you a warning. Gravebuster from PvZ 2 warning. 3, 2, 1. Ugh. Okay, you can you can look again. It's gross. So this makes me appreciate even more how good the PvZ 1 design is, and that's true of all the plants. Pretty much every PvZ 1 plant is super well designed visually. You'll find that this score tends to be quite high throughout the board, throughout the entire rest of the ranking. But either way, I think because I like its design, but maybe it's not the most enduring or iconic, we'll give it an 8. That's good. And then finally, fun factor. It's really fun to watch the Gravebuster do its work. It slithers down the grave, and if it gets there to the bottom successfully, the whole thing disappears, and it's really satisfying. It's great. And then, in addition to that, there's one use of the Gravebuster that is super extra fun. You can actually make it, make Vaulter Zombies jump with it. And that's why they put Vaulter Zombies in 2-4, which was the introduction level for the Gravebuster. It's a really fun little side use of it, and it's really useful in speedrunning as well, to be able to make that Vaulter jump. So, that's pretty solid. I'll give Gravebuster, even, it's not super versatile, so it's not going to have a whole ton of value here, but we'll give it a 7 out of 10. It's good. And all of that averages to about a little bit less than an 8 out of 10, which would make it an A tier plant. It's kind of hard to justify its placement here just because of how limited it is, but for what it does, I think the Gravebuster is really, really strong. So I'm going to... I am going to move it back to the bottom, to B tier, just because it is so limited, but it will be at the top. It will be at the top. It's really good at what it does. It's a specialist. Above all else, it is an absolute specialist. The most in this game, truly, that you can be. Moving on to Nighttime's first instant plant, it is the Hypnoshroom, and I know a lot of people absolutely love this plant, and I do not blame you. It's one of the most unique in the game and has a super unique effect where when the zombie eats it, they start working for you, which is obviously so fun. Making that happen is just like a great joy. There's a reason that PvZ Fusion and a bunch of other fan games and mods really buff up this plant, make it a star of the show. It's just captures one's imagination of having a pink zombie trudging down the field in the opposite direction for you and eating the other zombies. It's so cute. What an idea. Utility-wise, it's pretty decent. Only 75 sun is not too bad for an instant plant. Especially when the game starts introducing some higher health zombies at this point in time. This, of course, is the intended counter to the football, but I find it a little bit less egregious because the football is really just a fast and high health zombie. You can deal with it in all sorts of ways. The Hypno is just the most convenient one at the time, but we'll see the football zombie come back so much that it very much balances out. And so I think that it's pretty good. The only real thing that holds it back is that its medium cooldown is a little bit long, for what it is, and the 75 cost sun is a little high for what it is. It could have been 50, but I don't know. It's how fun to balance, to be honest. I get why it's 75. You could come up with different thoughts for each option there. So, what would I rate it? I think, I'll give a Hypnoshroom an 8. It's a little bit limited, once again, because it just is a mushroom, and it's only going to make one zombie work for you, unless, of course, you have a Michael Jackson zombie eat it, but we'll talk about that later. But it is a good plant. It's nice and solid. Design-wise, I think this guy's super fun. I love the little sway it does when it's animated. The little swirly eyes are just perfect. It's got these perfect little psychedelic colors. It conveys what it is absolutely perfectly. It says, zombies, would you like to take some LSD and work for me? That's also what Silicon Valley is like. But, don't take it from me. But either way, that's how it is. And it's just a good plant. Very good little mushroom friend. Excellent design. I'll give it a 9 out of 10 just because it's not quite as standalonely iconic as some other designs in this game, but it certainly deserves being almost up there. It conveys what it's about really well, and it's really fun to look at. And then, finally, the fun factor. Super high. You make a zombie work for you. It's a super high fun factor, obviously. Almost the most high fun factor you could get. I will give it a perfect 10 out of 10, actually. There's a reason that people love this plant, this mushroom, so much. I will not deny that. On average, this is shaping up to be an S tier plant, but I might end up exercising my authority and tie-breaking it down to an A. Even though I love the Hypnoshroom and I just gave it a lot of compliments, most of its positives come from the design and the fun factor portion. And while those are important, and certainly very cool and fun elements of a design and of a plant, they are not going to quite determine, I think, exactly where this goes in the placement as much as utility does. Utility is the most important factor. And in fact, I'm going to put it a little below Cherry Bomb because I think at the end of the day, the Cherry Bomb just is more versatile. There's more situations in which you could use the Cherry Bomb well than the Hypnoshroom. So just as a tiebreaker, we're going to put the Hypno down there. And I think that's pretty fair for it. I was going to say speaking of fair, but actually we're speaking of unfair because we're going to the Scaredy Shroom. The Scaredy Shroom is very much like its little cousin, the Puff Shroom, absolutely broken. 25 sun for the same damage as a pea shooter. Who decided that? I don't know, but I'm very thankful for it because the moment you start getting the Scaredy Shroom on the board, everything just becomes so much easier. The only problem with Scaredy Shroom is that it has social anxiety, and thus if a zombie comes close to it, it's gonna kind of shrink down into the floor and be completely vulnerable. The way you solve this is by putting security shrooms at the back of the level. It's not that complicated. You just move your sun shrooms up a column or two, and you're set. You're good. There's really... the sky's the limit pretty much for security shroom. It is so good. It's kind of unfair. I think both casuals and speedrunners love it. There's nobody who dislikes this. It's so cheap that you can use it for early cone heads and stuff like that, which is really, really helpful. It's much harder to deal with those with just puff shrooms. Yeah, security shroom OP. Just a little OP. 10 out of 10 utility. It has a drawback. 9 out of 10, because it's not going to be useful outside of night stages, but 9 out of 10, strong 9 out of 10. Very complimentary 9 out of 10. It just has very few drawbacks. It really does. And then after that, is design. I think Security Shroom has a really solid design. It very much communicates what it's about pretty easily. It's gonna be higher, once you get used to that the Puff Shroom's smallness is showing you range, then when you see the tall Scaredy Shroom, you intuitively go, oh, the Scaredy Shroom is going to shoot from longer away. Especially because you've already dealt with the Fume Shroom, which just increased that length from the Puff Shroom by 2 spots. So that means that you're dealing with a full damage dealer just like the Pea Shooter. And having that sort of instant knowledge in the design because of the context of the plants that came before it, I think is a huge bonus. It also works well standalone. You would understand pretty well, I think, what this plant is for if you just looked at it. And it's a cute design. It's really adorable. I think it really does have that plucky vibe. I get it when it shrinks down because it kind of looks like the archetype of the lanky bullied kid in high school. I hate to say it, but it's kind of true. Just like this sort of little silly guy that can't quite handle the pressure but is trying really hard. You know, he's trying really hard, guys. It's a very cute design. I like it a lot. I think it does what it needs to do very well. I'll give it a 9 out of 10. Fun factor, this is where Scaredy Shroom is not going to shine, because it has all the same strengths as the Puff Shroom, but it has more, fun scale weaknesses. It cowering down before zombies is maybe not the most fun thing in the world. It's kind of charming and cute, but it is certainly not fun to use in this respect. So I can't in good conscience give it that high of a score here. We'll give it a 5. And all of that considered means that Scaredy Shroom is actually going to rank quite high. It would rank in the A tier numerically, I believe, but I'm going to put it in the S tier, and I'm going to put it above Sun Shroom. It's just super, super useful for the night stages. Super good. There's almost nothing holding it back, and it's just a cute and fun design to top all of that off. Moving on to, unfortunately, our first kind of dud of the entire plant pool that we've looked at so far. Well, we're not at pool yet, but you know what I mean. We've got the Ice Shroom. The Ice Shroom is not devoid of use of merit, certainly, but it is also definitely the least useful plant that we've seen up until now. The Ice Shroom is an instant plant. It will freeze every plant or every zombie on the board, freeze them to the ground, or just give them a slowdown effect if they're in the pool, slash if they're certain types of zombies. And it will also deal 1 pea shot of damage to everybody on the board. I don't know if you knew that, but it's true. It can indeed do that. You can even kill Zomboss that way. If I find the clip where somebody has done that, I will put it here, and you can look at it. But either way, yeah, that's good. It's not, bad, per se. This is a useful effect. But is it really worth the 75 sun? And is it really worth it taking forever to come back on the cooldown? That's really the main problem with Ice Shroom. If it was more spammable, I think it would have more utility, both for casuals and maybe for speedrunners. Probably not. Speedrunners really like instant plants, and there's only so many seed slots out there. But still, that would improve it. Unfortunately, it has not received this glow up. So, as a result, I must give Ice Shroom not the highest utility score. We will give it a 6 out of 10. And that's not a bad thing. It still does stuff. It's just not great, you know? Design-wise, I think the Ice Shroom's fun. I really like its little stoic expression, and its super heavy cutoff here on the eyes, I think is really, really nice personality. I think it does have a lot of personality when you look at it. It's just a kind of a stone cold bee. It looks at you and your heart freezes. It's kind of exactly what it's going for. I like that the top of it is just absolutely filled with icicles. It very much conveys after the snow pea, which is kind of localized freezing, that everybody's going to get frozen with this guy. I think the design conveys that very well. It's a solid design, maybe not quite as iconic as some other plants, but a good one. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Thumbs up. Good. And then, finally, the fun factor. This is a fun plant to use. It really is. Freezing all the zombies on the board at once is fun. It's definitely a really cool thing to just watch everybody stop right at once. And technically it does damage to everyone too, so that's kind of fun as well. There's not much more to say than that. So I'll give it a fun factor of, I'll give it like a 7.58-ish, something like that. And then altogether, that's going to average out up to about a 7 or 6 and change. And I think, unfortunately, I'm going to exercise my right to put it at the lowest part of B tier. It's not bad, per se, but it just isn't quite doing it. Especially in a speedrunning setting, and especially because it is a night plant, meaning that it doesn't have as much utility throughout the game as other ones might. Although you could certainly use a coffee bean on this guy, I could see that happening, but it's just not as good. And then finally, the big daddy, the one that we've been waiting for this whole time in the night series, we've got the Doom Shroom. One of my favorite plants in the game for sure. I'm sure a lot of people's favorite plants in the game. One of them, the Doom Shroom, just is so, it makes you feel so powerful. It's not like nothing else that's come before it in this game. And it really makes you look at the cherry bomb and go, ah, that was a little baby thing in comparison. Doom Shroom blows up in a 5x5 radius. It's massive. It covers most of the zombies within the range that you use it in. And also, it is so powerful that it leaves a crater behind it, which means that nothing can be planted there for a while. Which, that's not a benefit, but it is a worthy drawback to its benefit, to the benefit of the Doom Shroom being the Doom Shroom, which is a large benefit. The Doom Shroom being the Doom Shroom is really good. It really is. I think it is a super solid one. Doom Shroom is great. I don't think there's really anybody arguing that Doom Shroom is bad, even with the crater drawback. The only real place that matters is 2-10. Otherwise, you can play around it pretty well and easily in pretty much any other context you're going to use Doom Shroom in, which is a lot. Doom Shroom is the main plant besides Gloom Shroom that you would ever use a coffee bean to have on the board, and in speedrunning, we do that all the time. Ever since you get Doom Shroom, you start using it, and you use it every single time you have access to it from then on. It is really good. So utility, I'm going to give that a 9 out of 10, because even though it is perfect at what it does essentially, it does have one small drawback, and it is also a night exclusive plant, only wake upable with coffee beans. Still worth it. Again, still worth the 200 sun during the day, but it's, you know, it does have one small drawback. Design-wise, super fun design, I think, for this guy. It really communicates the devastation by sort of emulating the blast of a nuclear bomb and making it kind of evoke that mushroom cloud with its shape and its color and its blood red eyes, which is dark, honestly, but I think it works really well for what it wants to do. Of course, then it does get that big giant purple plumage after it goes off. And it's just a really solid design, in my opinion. Really fun. A lot of people love this one, and I think I will give it its corresponding 9 out of 10. It's a really strong design. Just good overall. Fun factor, it's obviously super fun to blow up the whole board. Like, the only thing that's less fun about it is the crater that it leaves. And if you're using that to blow up the final wave, who cares? who gaff? Not me. So that will be a good solid 9 out of 10 as well, and all of that will average out to 9 out of 10. And I'm going to be putting the Doom Shroom up near just below the Chopper. It is close between these two. I think Chopper just wins out over the Doom Shroom for me in terms of its overall utility throughout the entire game is a little bit stronger. But the Doom Shroom, you pretty much use it every single opportunity you can in the speedrun, and I don't see why you wouldn't as a casual either. It's tons and tons of fun to use. It's a little bit more of an investment cost, but even then, 125 is a steal for this guy. It's a good one. Overall, night plants ended up being pretty darn good as well. Very similar across the board as day plants, although we have one more S tier and actually 3 fewer A tiers and 3 more B tiers. So the average is just a little bit lower, but not by that much. We're not looking dire yet. Unfortunately, we might start looking a little bit more dire soon, but you're just gonna have to keep watching to see that one. Yeah, that's the night section.